This live stream where we will discuss the ongoing humanitarian refugee crisis in Greece. My name is Jeroen Steeman and I'm joined by Tineke Strik and Erik Marquardt, members of the European Parliament, respectively from the Netherlands and from Germany. Before being elected in the European Parliament, Tineke was a Dutch senator and an associate professor in migration law in Nijmegen. And Erik was a photojournalist and reported on refugees both on land and embedded on rescue boats. And he's joining us live from Lesbos. Tineke, to start with you, can you draw like the bigger picture? Why are there so many refugees on the Greek islands at the moment?
Yes, well, that all has to do with the EU-Turkey statement that has been concluded between EU member states and Turkey already in March 2016. In 2015, many refugees who were hosted by Turkey for already 4 years after the war broke out in Syria in 2011, and their circumstances became harsher in Turkey, they started to move on further into the European Union countries. And this had led to a kind of crisis response by the EU by concluding an agreement with Turkey saying that Turkey would get money from the EU, and in exchange for that, Turkey would host the refugees and also prevent refugees from departing Turkey, entering into the EU, and also to take back refugees who nevertheless managed to enter the EU. And what the EU did at the same time is building a fence at the land border between North Macedonia and Greece. That meant that all of a sudden, 60,000 refugees were stuck in Greece, on the mainland and on the Greek islands. Whereas at that situation, at that time, Greece hardly had any asylum system. So that meant that all of a sudden camps had to be established in factories or whatever. Also on the islands, nothing was there. So the hotspots who were there became overcrowded. A lot of waiting times, no reception conditions. And actually, this is the case since March 2016. So that's not new. The situation has deteriorated all the time, also because refugees need to be contained on the Greek islands, because that was one of the conditions for being able to return them to Turkey. So they could not travel further. And this is what the authorities did. So the situation was already very bad. But as Erdogan wanted to get more support for its occupation policy in Syria, it started to use this deal towards the EU to force them actually to support the policies of Erdogan by threatening to send all the refugees to the EU. And this is actually what Erdogan did. And beginning of March, end of February, we saw all of a sudden many refugees entering or approaching the Greek border. And there the Greek authorities all of a sudden started to increase the border controls. No one was able to enter the territory anymore, and they were also not able to go back to Turkey. So they were trapped in a limbo land. And at the same time, more people managed to reach the Greek islands, where Erik is now, and where the situation has deteriorated even more.
Yes, because Erik, you are on Lesbos and you were there the last couple of weeks. What is the current situation there?
Yeah, pretty tense situation actually still. And we have a situation where we had the crisis before Erdogan announced that he opened the borders, and we had a situation where rule of law, human rights collapsed at the external borders, where we used a civil war rhetoric to talk about situation where people are coming, and that felt like Erdogan is sending weapons and bombs to Europe, and many people feel like a little bit insecure of the situation just because of the rhetoric. That is, developed a bigger crisis, and now we have Corona here, not here on the island, but here in Europe at least. And I would say that it is now a really challenging situation for everyone in Europe, but we should see that Corona is not caring about the origin, about the gender or the religion of people. And I feel a little bit like that we don't give an answer which is appropriate to that crisis. If we talk about Lesbos and you ask me how the situation is, you would maybe be surprised that there are hotspots, if you want to say so, in Europe where 25,000 people are gathered at a small place in tents, while everybody else is in a situation that we say, please stay at home, please provide or do social distancing, wash your hands. And you have in Moria one possibility to wash your hands for 1,300 people. If we want to give an honest answer to the situation, it's not about only the humanitarian crisis for refugees, but it's also how we fight against Corona. If we have situations where you will have an explosion of Corona some days after the virus arrives there.
Yeah, because Tineke, we are also hearing about human rights violations, about refugees that are stuck on the island because they're not even allowed to access an asylum procedure, right?
Yes, that's true. Since Erdogan sent the refugees to the border, the Greek government has announced that people are not getting access to the procedure anymore, at least for a month. This will be suspended, which means that they cannot register, identify, and ask for protection, which is a very grave violation of the right to asylum. But cynically enough, we now also see it in other European countries where they start doing the same. So that makes it also very difficult to urge Greece to refrain from what they are doing now. What actually already started a bit earlier is that we have a new Greek government now, and that government has come up with new asylum laws, which actually has the aim of detaining all asylum seekers and also to restrict their procedural rights, like the right to appeal, the right to benefits, many other rights. And at the same time, we have really a big lack of legal aid providers. So it's very difficult for asylum seekers to get access to people who help them in their procedure. So that already took place. And on top of that, this suspension of asylum requests has been announced. And what we also heard, but maybe Erik can tell more about this, is that there are also secret places of detention, and that there was also a military vessel which may have sailed now to North Greece where people are detained, and that it's very difficult for legal aid and for NGOs to enter and to get access to those people. Do you know more about what is happening to them?
Yeah, there is a situation where there are some secret places, and I did not have the possibility yet to try to discover what happens there. I know that some journalists are trying to find out more. At the moment, it's not that easy. Also, if you look on Lesbos, there is not a big media coverage at the moment. Most of the big TV stations, of the big newspapers, rescued their stuff somehow and bring them to their homes, which is also good for not only them, but it's I think an appropriate situation or appropriate answer on the Corona crisis to give everybody the possibility to stay at home. But in the end, we have a lack of media coverage in the whole situation here at the external borders. There are some new places which are not hidden. I have contacted different camps. I would say that the situation there is not good, but at least there is no torture like we saw in the Edirne area last weeks, and people are not shot, which we also saw at the external borders the last weeks. So I would say the most important thing at the moment is to see where are overcrowded places without quarantine possibilities, without hygiene possibilities to protect the refugees, but also protect the European society from places in Europe where the virus can just spread. And in the end, I just wanted to add that it's not only about the humanitarian situation here, it's also that many right-wing extremists feel empowered by the rhetoric of the Greek government, which was supported by European Commission, but also European member states. That was not the best idea, I would say, to use phrases like in civil war and urging everybody to make a civil society border protection force here. We had some problems with right-wing fascists on the islands. We had the problems that there were really people hunting NGO volunteers, hunting refugees, blocking the streets. Police did actually nothing. It was really like the whole situation feels like a Netflix series since 3 weeks with different developments actually. And I felt a little bit ashamed by the situation that, of course, sometimes there is a crisis and you have to deal with it somehow. But what we did in the last weeks was a threat from Erdogan, also with a situation here with Corona, and that's like no answer to nothing at the moment. It's also that like some meters away from here are some people living in a bus or 3 buses since some weeks. It took us 1 week actually to provide a wheelchair to a disabled young guy from Somalia. He was completely happy when he saw his new wheelchair, while he was really crying 1 week before. But in the end, it's a big gap between what people deserve at the moment and what they get here. And like every small step to close this gap is really hard at the moment, because the authorities are not really focusing on human rights, rule of law, or dignity of people at the moment. And I'm a little bit scared that the next months will be challenging for everyone, but especially for people who are in this kind of situations.
Okay, because on Monday you spoke with people from Doctors Without Borders about the medical situation in the camps, especially on the preparedness for the coronavirus, for COVID-19. What did they tell you?
Yeah, partly it also confirmed what Erik just said. Like the hygienic circumstances are awful, really. There's hardly fresh water to wash your hands, or there's no space at all to make sure that you are in isolation. So people are really packed. Can you imagine 26,000 for a place for 3,000, which is suitable for 3,000 places? So they really confirmed that those people are very vulnerable of getting the virus, and especially so because they are already vulnerable themselves. I mean, many of them are in precarious situations for years already, so they don't have a lot of resistance, though they have diseases. There are many children among them. So they are even more vulnerable to getting to being affected by this virus. And as you know, there has been a detection of the virus at Lesbos, and Doctors Without Borders also said it's just a matter of time. And at the moment that the virus will reach Moria, the Moria camp, people are chanceless and they can't go anywhere. So they are very extremely concerned, really afraid that it will lead to a lot of deaths. And at the same time, you see, everyone withdrawing from the camp. There are even less doctors instead of more. There are less NGOs instead of more, partly because of the harassments on the island, but also because of the risks that the whole virus exposes, that everyone is exposed to that risk. So I think this is I think maybe that this is the most vulnerable place in the whole European Union at the moment, if you talk about health risks of the virus. And this is also why we, happily, I got support from the other political groups today, that we write an urgent letter to the commissioners. There is a crisis team of 5 commissioners addressing all elements of the COVID-19 virus. And we really urge them to take into account this situation, to do preventive evacuation of the people, at least, you know, the vulnerable ones to start with, and also to bring much more medical staff, etc., etc. And actually, the reverse effect is of the threat, you know, the fear for the virus is that those countries who already were prepared to relocate people, to let people come to their countries, they say now, no, we put it on hold, we're going to wait. And actually, what we also ask in the letter, please don't do that, and reinforce these relocation measures, and making sure that they're accompanied by, for instance, quarantine measures or whatever. I mean, you can do both. You can evacuate them and at the same time protect your own citizens as well. Actually, at the moment, those people are afraid for the European virus, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's maybe one thing I can tell you, because I had some, I would say, response on my social media activities, and many, like, I would not say many people, maybe many accounts, like maybe it was not so many people, it was people with many accounts, said, oh, we have to protect ourselves from these migrants, refugees, invaders, whatever they say, because they have this coronavirus and they will bring it to Europe. And actually, the situation here on Lesbos is at the moment that if people come from Moria and go in the city to buy something or whatever, they're starting to wear masks when they go in the city, of course, because they're really scared that the Europeans who actually took them into this camp in this shitty situation now gives them corona as a gift. Yeah, you know, like they're really scared of being in contact with Europeans, actually, not scared with, like, they're not threatening somebody, but it's like everybody is really scared because everybody knows that it will be a huge crisis, and it is not something in the, like, which we have to think about in 1 year or whatever. Like, we have not so much time, maybe some days, if we are lucky, maybe a week or two, but then our window of opportunity is just closed. And I'm also in a situation where I think that it's pretty convincing that you have to act here, actually. Like, it's even if you don't care about human rights at the moment, if you don't care about the dignity of people, and if you don't care about refugees or whatever, it's just very naive to think that you can have places where 25,000 people are gathered at the moment in Europe. So that's just not a holistic approach on this huge crisis, which affects us all, like, no matter which religion we are or whatever. And I think that we have very convincing arguments for relocation, which is not just about, like, it's not about, like, freedom of movement or whatever for somebody at the moment. Of course, it's just about having the possibilities to put everyone in a situation where enough quarantine places are. And of course, if you relocate people from Moria to like 5,000 to the 25,000 empty places in refugee camps in Germany, for example, 25,000 spaces at the moment. You can think, like, tomorrow about putting homeless people there, 5,000 or whatever. They also need protection now at the moment from the virus, and adequate home. But you, of course, also have to just put them into quarantine for 2 weeks. So it's not about, like, because I had some responses of, like, oh, now, like, everybody have to stay at home, but you want the freedom of movement for refugees. And that's not the case, actually. I just want
you can organize it
into quarantine. Yeah, into quarantine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Erik, what can you tell me about your initiative, about your campaign with Leave No One Behind?
Yeah, I had the idea some days ago that in this huge crisis where the media coverage is, of course, and that's also important, very much focused on national topics, on, like, everybody is talking about Corona, but we have some parts of society which are left behind in the media coverage, in the political responses, and also maybe in the financial support, if you want to say so. Like, for example, we have NGOs here who are doing great work, and at the moment they need some possibilities to employ Greek volunteers from the island. It's not possible at the moment, and it's not useful, and it's very dangerous to find volunteers from, I don't know, Spain, Italy, and whatever to close the humanitarian lack of help here. And so not we, like, I don't need money. I have taxpayers' money. That's nice for me. But many NGOs here need support, also financial support. And we also need, to put a light on situations like Lesbos. That's not very easy in times of Corona crisis. But I thought that the idea I said in the beginning, that if Corona don't care about your origin, your status, your gender, or your skin color, then we have to think about, like, what's our answer? Like, can we divide ourselves at the moment, or should we maybe also use this big challenge, I would say also a challenge for mankind, maybe as a possibility to just leave everything behind we fight against each other the last years. There, as we know, were like huge discussions about migration, huge discussions about social equality, and we did not find a possibility to talk to each other in a calm way about many topics, and to try to understand each other. And I would say that the Corona crisis also gives us a possibility to connect each other, to talk about solidarity more than like crisis nationalism, racism, or egoism, which can be like, maybe it's convincing for some people that they have to buy the whole toilet paper of the world now because they think they need it, or weapons in the US. But I think it's more convincing that if coronavirus don't care about our skin color, that we should find a way to talk about solidarity, to work together. And that's why we started the campaign. It's at the moment, I would say you can call it a petition, but at the end we want to gather people for different actions, and we will start tomorrow with our first idea, and then we have some other ideas. I can maybe, if you have time, also explain two ideas, not public yet, but tomorrow we will kind of adapt leave a light on idea, which our colleague, ex-colleague, unfortunately, Alan from Scotland, kind of started in his last speech in the European Parliament in the Brexit discussion, or when Brexit happened. He said in his speech, I'm not asking you to solve our domestic problems. I'm asking you to leave a light on so that we can find our way home. And I think it's a good idea for this campaign to start, for example, if we just asking everybody who wants to put a candle in his window, and also making a picture of it using social media to say that, of course, we are all in a challenging situation, but we know that much more people are maybe more challenging situations at the moment, and that we want to kind of guide them away to feel safe, home, to have a home, and to lead them the way with many small lights, or as you can also call it, lighthouses. That could be one idea, but I also want to connect people at the moment. Everybody's at home, people feel maybe a little bit alone, and people are asking me, like, can you tell me what the refugees are thinking about the situation? But it's not necessary that I tell it to people. If we make an action like, let's talk, hashtag let's talk, hashtag leave no one behind. We can also find some people in Moria who are just on, like, everyone is on Instagram and Facebook, like not so many on Facebook, especially the younger people is thinking that Facebook is a little bit like for their grandmas, but you find everyone on Instagram, many people on Facebook, some on Twitter, and it's easy to connect at the moment. You can just talk to refugees, we can make a big group, and then everybody can talk directly to people in Moria, and that gives them also the possibilities to tell their stories, maybe to use influencers to tell their stories if they want to. and that gives also the population of Moria the possibility to talk for themselves. And if there is a fire again in Moria, like 2 days ago, they can just use their contacts in Western Europe to speak about it, and then it's not necessary that I am here in Moria to speak about the fires, and then they can do it on their own. And these kind of situations, I also want to do some fundraising campaigns. I think we will we have a like interesting capitalistic idea, because everybody's buying all the toilet paper, but we have some, and we will pay, we will sell one toilet paper blanket for 30 euros for a good thing. And then we will sell toilet paper to everyone who wants to. But yeah, unfortunately, the hygiene conditions do not allow us to send it with a postal service. So I think we will send PDFs scanned. So.
Okay. I think I like the idea very much of Erik to make it a campaign to really address the public, the people who may care more about their human beings on the islands than the government has shown until now. I think if you saw that when it started at the border, that the member states merely sent, border guards money for bordering the guards, but they did perceive the borders as our borders, but they didn't perceive the refugees as our refugees. But at the same time, you saw that many people in society did so. You saw many municipalities, NGOs, individuals who said, look, we cannot leave them there in that situation. We need to do more. And this is exactly now what this campaign can mobilize those people and show that we expect something else from our governments than only, shifting the responsibilities somewhere else. And because, well, only a week ago already, we also managed to get a majority in Parliament urging for much more relocation. At that moment, it was the Commission saying, look, we are going to try to relocate 1,500 unaccompanied minors. And we said, yes, but there are 5,500 unaccompanied minors, and there are many more children. There are many more other vulnerable people. So we need to do more. This is what we urged the member states at that moment, but it's so important that the public opinion changes, or that people can show that they really expect something else from the government. I mean, they will tend to listen better to them, to their voters, than to people from the European Parliament. And now, together with our urgent call to the Commission to take actions regarding the health situation in Lesbos, I think we really need to do what we can do, but also to ally with citizens all over European countries, and also let them immediately directly get in contact with the refugees, because then they show it's not a number, but these are people with a whole individual story behind them.
Yeah. And I'm also really happy that you managed to convince people to find a response from the Parliament. That's I would say very important at the moment. But or not but I think also the civil society can show that the public opinion is not like some Twitter accounts with cat pictures in their profile pictures try to show to conservative politicians and whatever. And I really felt when the threats from Erdogan, I would not say like Erdogan opens the borders because you have the right to leave your country. That's not like a new thing actually in general. But of course, it does not mean that if Erdogan says our borders are open, that Greek has open borders, or that we should have a discussion even about like opening the borders or closing the borders. That's a little bit like also naive. Maybe some news articles can talk about that, whatever, but that's not a like political question in the end. It's just a question like what happened that we immediately said, okay, so we don't have a right of asylum anymore. We don't care about rule of law. We shoot at the people. It's not like we are not in a situation where we can find out if, like, many people are not convinced that these people are refugees, but they have no reason to be there or whatever. We will not find out with tear gas and sticks and bullets if they are like only what people call economic migrants or refugees or whatever. Therefore, we have the rule of law. We have like really good rules to deal with these kind of situations. And I really did not understand why we didn't, like, if we have no solutions in the next 2 hours, nothing happens. You can send some interpreters, send some blankets, a soup and 3 doctors, and talk to the people and say, okay, stay calm, Erdogan lied to you, that was wrong, but we will treat you as human beings and not as if you are bombs or whatever. The borders are not open at the moment. It brings nothing if you try to like attack us or whatever. We will not attack you if you don't. And we need, I'm sorry, we need like now 1 week to discuss the situation in the European Union, see what happens, discuss with Erdogan, and just find a solution which works for like everyone, especially the people in need. And you have like, you can just have a look in the asylum procedures regulations. These kind of situations, you have 10 days to provide asylum requests. And if you have no good solution after 10 days, I don't know. And if you are not like very intelligent politician, then you can just go into the civil war rhetoric, send soldiers, throw tear gas. You can do it after 10 days if you don't find solutions or if it's your best wish to do that. But that we did not give us as democracies the time until we just do not respect our roots, that made me really sad, but also I would say, yeah, motivated me to fight against this, I would say, very naive response from the European Union, which was exactly what Erdogan wants us to do, to give him the possibility to show, like, to point on Europe and say, okay, there are maybe 10 or 15,000 or 20,000 people. Let us say 20,000 people, some say 13,000, I don't know. Like, let us say 20,000 people were at the borders. Erdogan pointed at the European Union and say, look how they treat 20,000 people. And they ask me with 3.5 million refugees, which is more than every European Union member state together have in their like whole European Union. And I have 3.5 million refugees in my country. And now they want me, when they cannot deal with 20,000 people, to treat 1 million people from Idlib better than they, as 27 states, do with like 20,000 people. So that gave him a strong approach on, like, I care more about human beings and the whole European Union. But it also shows that he is in a situation, also with the EU-Turkey statement, to really bring the European Union into challenging situations immediately. So
yeah, but
we are somehow dependent, and we let him be the winner in this fight, which was not actually a fight.
We let him do that because the EU doesn't have an answer if it comes to fair sharing of responsibility. And I mean, you can only criticize Turkey if you take your fair share. And I think at the moment it's the same with the Greek government. We cannot only criticize Greece if we just, keep our border closed for the refugees. So I think it needs to go hand in hand. If we take refugees from the Greek island, we can also urge the Greek government to do more and to respect the rights of the asylum seekers. And I really believe in this parallel development, trying to do a campaign, mobilizing people, and at the same time, do our work in the European Parliament. Tomorrow, we have a meeting with the Libe Committee and Commissioner Johansson, who is responsible for migration issues. She's also in the crisis team. So we are really going to ask from her, what exactly are you going to do now? How are you going to save these lives and their health?
Many people also ask me, okay, but isn't there maybe the possibility that if we treat these people a little bit better, that many more people are coming? And I talked to also people in Turkey. I talked to many people in the past days, and it's just not the reality that 3.5 million refugees in Turkey want to come to the European Union. The children go to schools, they speak the language. Many people want to stay in an area where the majority of the people are Muslims, actually. And that's just not the reality that everybody wants to go to Europe at the moment. But if we are in a situation where maybe there are, I don't know, 20, 50, maybe 100,000 people who want to come to Europe, if Erdogan says he opens the borders in the end. But if we are in a situation where we cannot deal with 27 member states with these kind of situations, I would also say that it's not only a weak situation on like humanitarian with a humanitarian approach, but it just shows to, like, in a globalized world, to China, Russia, the US, that they can just make jokes about the European Union, how to solve a crisis in Yemen, how to have a strong approach in Yemen and find diplomatic solutions, how to come to a table in Syria where you solve some problems in Syria, or like talk about your interests in Syria, if we are not able to deal with some boats in the Aegean. Yeah, you know, like everybody's laughing at us when we cannot deal with rubber boats while everybody has military boats on scene. That's also a weak answer from a, I would say, foreign policy perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, well, thank you both really for your insights up till now. Let me see if some more people have questions, then they can still put them in the chat that we have on our YouTube channel as well. One of the questions now I still have, maybe for you, Tineke. I mean, there will be new legislation coming forward in the coming months. What do you expect from that? Will it give any solutions or any relief more on the longer term?
Well, the idea was actually that the new commission would really find a way to share the responsibility for asylum seekers more fairly as until now. And that was the whole idea why there should be a new proposal. We haven't seen the proposal yet, but what we heard is that there's a lot of support for creating a border procedure at the external border. For instance, think of Greece, think of Italy, that those hotspots where people are now stuck in, that there would be an asylum procedure, or maybe an initial procedure to filter people who have a chance to get protection and those who don't have a chance. And that the prospects cases, the people with chances would be divided over the member states, but then only through voluntarily means, so that member states can say, okay, I want them, and others can just give money or send officials. We have to see how it will look like, but at the moment, I think that it will not bring a solution to the problems that we see now, because it would mean that, for instance, we still overburden the member states at the external borders, like Greece and Italy, because we still depend on their capacity, on their officials, judges, whatever, who have to deal with all those asylum requests. And it doesn't change fundamentally the problem that we have now, namely the principle that the state where someone enters for the first time the EU is responsible for the whole procedure. And I think if you don't leave that principle, you know, if you say, no, we don't take that as a criterion, everyone is common responsible, then we will stick with the same problems of people who don't stay somewhere else and travel further, or that some countries are so overburdened that they cannot cope with the asylum request. With all the images that we see now on the islands, I'm afraid we will continue having that.
Erik, do you have anything to add for that? Because we are about to close.
No, I would just say that last weeks showed us, like, if we just put Corona out of the debate, that we need solidarity in the European asylum system, because everything else would make us a weak European Union in different political topics. And I think we were right when we said that there is not a situation that nobody is like ashamed to help people. We have many regional governments, we have many also cities who are willing to help. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe we need another structure, and that's what we are working on also together in our group at the European Parliament. We have strong arguments, and I hope we are convincing that in the end, after the Corona crisis, we will also not having a refugee crisis anymore when 10,000 people are somewhere. It's possible to deal with the situation. Migration is something we should manage in the 21st century, especially to control the situation and not just having strange chaotic situations like we saw the last weeks.
But I think also here it's very interesting to see so many municipalities say, look, we want to have them. Really the opposite of what member states say, no, we don't want to have them. Yeah. So this is very encouraging, I think. And that especially if we build in the system that municipalities can also say, look, we want to have so many refugees, we can use them, we can integrate them, and then change the whole narrative and support for refugees. I think maybe the member states, the governments are lagging behind the insight and the idea that citizens have, that we need to take our share, and that it's also creating win-win situation, that it's also good for us as well.
And just a small advertising, because we at the moment we are trying to internationalize our, the campaign started in Germany because I know not so many celebrities in other countries and we needed some celebrities, but we started in Germany and now internationalize everything. We also have it in Dutch language, leave no one behind 2020.nl. If you have any questions, contact at leavenonebehind.de. Just if you want to be on board, sign the paper, and then we do everything.
Yes, because I saw in the chat that we have some people asking, okay, so what can I do? But then the starting point is to go to the website and to
this is the first thing to do, indeed. Yeah, we also in the Netherlands, we are going to warmly support it and to mobilize everyone to go to that website and express your support. I think that would be a great way forward.
Yeah, and then we have some actions the next days, and we will use the internet to gather and do some social stuff. That will be good.
Yes, so everybody who is stuck at home can still can still do something as well. Well, once again, thank you for joining us, Erik and Tineke, and thanks to everybody for watching. Well, this is it for now. If we have more news, of course, then we will be back with another a live discussion like this. So for now, well, thank you again to Tineke and Erik. Do you have still final remarks, maybe?
Now, well, we are all in it together. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's really true. I mean, if we see this as something that is unacceptable to happen in the EU, we really need to work hand in hand in order to solve this. We cannot leave it to Greece. We cannot leave it to the governments. We really need to have a big coalition, and then actually it's not such a big job. I mean, if we do it together, we talk about 26,000 refugees. Actually, we can do it. We are much stronger than that.
Oh, great, Erik. You're still there?
I am there, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Do you have some final remarks?
No, like Tineke said, everything, like we can do it, and we also have to do it in Corona crisis times. It's not a matter of like only humanity, but also a matter of security at the moment, to prevent situations where many people are gathering around. At the moment, it's a crime in Greece to stay together with more than 10 people, but the government decided that they put more than 20,000 people together in one place. So actually they're committing a crime at the moment, and they should stop doing it, because we are actually, as Tineke said, are in this situation together. And I want a government here in Greece which protects their society, which protects refugees, and which handles the situation in a way which is not completely naive, actually. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, and take care, and let's hope we can see each other soon in real life again, when we are allowed out on the street again.
Bye, thank you.